Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A recent UN-backed report offers hard statistical evidence that the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is turning into a man-made famine. It has increased the pressure on Israel to fulfill its legal responsibilities to protect Palestinian civilians and to allow adequate supplies of humanitarian aid to reach the people who need it. The UN's most senior human rights official, Volker Turk, said that Israel bore significant blame and that there was a plausible case that Israel was using starvation as a weapon of war in Gaza.
When it comes to humanitarian assistance, let's be clear. Israel is an occupying power and has an obligation to provide humanitarian assistance. And if that humanitarian assistance does not come in the scale, speed and predictability that is required, yes, very serious questions are raised.
Meanwhile, officials say Israel has asked the White House to reschedule a high-level meeting on military plans for Gaza's southern city of Rafah that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had abruptly cancelled. Netanyahu called off a planned visit to Washington by a senior Israeli delegation after the US allowed passage of a Gaza ceasefire resolution at the United Nations on Monday, marking a new wartime low in his relations with President Joe Biden.
Prime Minister's office has agreed to reschedule the meeting dedicated to Rafah. So we're now working with them to find a convenient date that's obviously going to work for both sides. But his office has agreed to reschedule that meeting that would be dedicated to Rafah.
The bodies of 2 people have been recovered from a red pickup truck which was underwater where the Baltimore Bridge collapsed. Drone footage over the site shows in detail the scale of the damage. 8 construction workers were on the bridge when a ship struck it. 2 workers were rescued on the day, but the search continues for the other 4, all presumed dead. Salvage crews are working to address hazardous materials and accident investigators are on the scene.
Today, we transitioned from search and rescue to recovery. We need to bring a sense of closure and comfort to the families, and we take that very seriously. And to all the families, I say, estamos contigo, ahora y siempre. Less than an hour after the collapse, we had divers in the water at 2:25 a.m. to begin search and rescue.
4 people have been killed and at least 5 injured after a man armed with a knife went on a rampage in the US state of Illinois. Police in Rockford say the attacks occurred following a home invasion. One of the injured is in a critical condition. The victims are a 15-year-old girl, a 63-year-old woman, a 49-year-old man and a 22-year-old man. Another 22-year-old man has been arrested and is being questioned by police. Police say the motive for the attacks remains unclear. People have been evacuated after a fire broke out at a petrol station outside of downtown Bowling Green in Kentucky. A nearby school and several local businesses were put under evacuation orders after the blaze broke out. The origin of the fire is currently under investigation. China has announced it will remove significant tariffs on Australian wine in another key sign of improving relations between the 2 countries. Beijing imposed taxes of more than 200% in 2020 amid a string of economic blows to Australian exports. That year, Beijing targeted Australian coal, barley, timber and lobsters as part of a wider political falling out. But China-Australia relations have improved since a new Canberra government was elected in 2022. And an Australian state premier has backed a campaign to return an Instagram-famous magpie to its human carers after it was seized by wildlife authorities. The bird, dubbed Molly, was rescued as a chick by a Queensland couple and formed an unlikely bond with their bull terrier Peggy. More than 2 million people follow a Peggy and Molly profile online. Queensland's leader, Stephen Miles, says Molly should be reunited with the family, contradicting state officials. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.